My name is Kyle, and I've been playing League of Legends for way too long. I also enjoy fighting games, thanks to growing up with Street Fighter, Soul Calibur, Mortal Kombat, and Super Smash Bros. Riot has been branching out and experimenting with their intellectual property for the last few years. We've gotten some bangers out of it. I fell in love with their comics, Legends of Runeterra was a blast, and to top it all off, Arcane is my favorite animated series of the decade. I've been looking to the horizon, and while the MMO does look promising, it's the fighting game that has me really excited. Project L is an assist-based 2v2 2D tag fighter with clean-looking movement, promising design philosophy, and netcode. I've played Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and enjoyed my time with it, so Project L looks like it will scratch my itch for the setting of Runeterra between binges of the Netflix series, and give me an excuse to stop wasting my life on you-know-what. Most of the hype I've seen for Project L comes from the fighting game community, and while that's great, it also means the vast majority of people who are hyped about making content for the game know next to nothing about the characters and lore. I've seen a few. They're good. Good news though, I just so happen to fucking love the lore of Runeterra. This means I'm in a great position to force my opinions onto you, so here are the 25 League of Legends champions I'd put in a fighting game roster. These picks are made with multiple criteria in mind. In order of importance, these criteria are diversity of playstyle for the health of the game, diversity of region of origin for varied visual appeal, character interactions, yeah, and diversity of role on Summoner's Rift. Project L has already confirmed the first 5 characters for me, so I won't go over them in too much detail. Most of you have probably already seen them, but for the uninitiated, these characters' names are Darius, Katarina, Jinx, Ahri, and Echo. All in all, these are stellar additions that boast a wide variety of archetypes and aesthetics. I believe you can't make a fighting game in Runeterra without Riven. It just cannot be done. It would be a betrayal of not only the IP, but League culture. In League of Legends, Riven is iconic for strung together combos and animation canceling. She represents the design philosophy of Project L very well, in that she has a high skill ceiling, while also being fairly straightforward for a novice to pick her up and understand how her abilities build off each other, with only a little bit of experimentation. Riven is also one of the most perfect candidates from the League of Legends champion pool for an install character, as her broken sword can be reforged over the course of a match, potentially giving her additional attack effects, extended range, and enhanced damage. This design can be achieved through an install super, or maybe a unique meter not directly tied to the super meter, like we've seen on characters like M. Bison. Blitzcrank is my first choice from the support role in League of Legends. They're the poster child for hook champions designed to grab squishies, move them out of position, and lock them down. In a 2D fighter, Blitzcrank would make one hell of a grappler, with extended techable input-sensitive command grabs and devastating throws, while still boasting threatening short-range neutrals. Of all the characters presented, Blitzcrank would likely have the largest hurt box by default, and would have among the most punishable end lag. Blitzcrank players would need to deal with both rushdowns exploiting superior frame data, and zoners preventing them from making the most of their strong neutral game. But Blitzcrank has a compelling answer to both in the form of the iconic rocket grab, which would be the king of setup moves. Until the release of Arcane, Akali received among the most prolific screen time of any League of Legends champion, thanks to her presence in both KDA and True Damage. Akali would be the premier runaway rushdown character for Project L, using her sickle to exact devastating combo strings. An arsenal of projectiles, like smoke bombs and kunai, may give her the time she needs through an opponent's flinches to close the distance and begin her assault, after which she would bounce right back off to a safe distance, before preparing to go in again. Akali could be a good candidate for a stance-based fighter, but I see her more with Rekka's. She has multiple different states in League of Legends that can empower her dashes and attacks, such as ambushing from stealth, or while spinning her sickle above her head to deliver an empowered attack. Lee Sin is one of the most popular characters in League of Legends. He's my pick for a standard Shoto-style character, complete with his own Hadouken. Lee Sin is a blind martial artist from Ionia who channels the essence of the dragon spirit into his fighting style. High spinning heel kicks will notch approaching aerial opponents right back into a sonic wave unless they take away, giving him a combo string as a reward for good foresight. In order to best reference his skill set from Summoner's Rift, Lee Sin should have good air game and both strong gap closers and get off me tools, making him a no-brainer pick as the roster's representative Ryu or Ken. Some of you may have picked up that I've been prioritizing popular characters for their inclusion in the roster. While this isn't just a popularity contest, characters who are in dire need of a redesign, or characters who got forgotten about, are less likely to make the list. Project L still has to make money, after all. Anyway, here's Arcane protagonist Vi, a police enforcer in the relative technological powerhouse of Piltover, with a punch first and ask questions later attitude. In spite of years of neglect from her source game, Vi has seen a surge in attention thanks to her crucial role in the animated Netflix series. Vi has the potential to be another strong grappler or rushdown character, depending on her implementation. Think 20% grappler, 80% rushdown. In her kit on Summoner's Rift, she can be seen with multiple dashes, a grab, and animation-cancelled neutral attacks into empowered follow-ups. In a 2D fighter, like Project L, she would likely favor high-aggression grounded combos that lead into hard-to-tech throws and dash in with her powerful charges while her opponent is helpless. Unlike the other grappler we've shown so far, Blitzcrank, Vi would rely on high-commitment engages, making her not quite as weak to rushdowns, but substantially weaker to zoners. Fiora Laurent is a shoo-in for inclusion in a fighting game just like Ribbon, though maybe I'm biased from growing up with Raphael from Soul Calibur 2. In addition to working thematically in a duel scenario, just look at her title, Fiora covers a weapon type that has not seen much representation in our roster so far with her rapier, and is our first representative from the country of Demacia. Fiora should have among the higher skill ceilings of the roster, relying on perfect footsies and sweet spots in her thrust-based move pool. Long lunges could tax an opponent from neutral and help her deal with zoners, while also acting as either launchers or combo finishers. Because of her riposte ability on Summoner's Rift, she's the perfect candidate for a reversal playstyle, baiting opponents into whiffing an attack or interrupting moves with inferior frame data to counter with her own assault. When used properly, riposte also has a crowd control component. On top of naturally good counter game, Fiora should have a move reminiscent of Ryu's Focus Punch or a Super Smash Bros. Style counter special. Yordles are an interesting design challenge for a fighter for obvious reasons. Ultimately, odd-job characters and shorties are workable, and I feel at least one should be included if their character gimmick is strong enough. Enter Gnar, the missing link. Gnar is a primitive Yordle from an age long past, having been frozen in magical true ice for millennia. Now thawed, Gnar is a curious juvenile who doesn't know his own strength. More so than previous champions on the roster, Gnar is a great candidate for an install character. His passive on Summoner's Rift periodically turns him into this hulking Goliath, resulting in a huge burst of power. While small, Gnar may focus on using his signature boomerang and dashes to keep his distance from his opponent until he is able to fully charge his install, at which point he unleashes his toddler tantrum with oppressive damage, range, and super armor during animations. If his opponent has dropped his health too low while still small and is prepared for the transformation, however, he may not last long against a few well-placed projectiles or heavy-hitting attacks thrown without worry for missing his now massive hurt box. Oriana knows what makes them tick, and she knows how to make the ticking stop. Oriana was a young nurse in the city of Zaun who passionately protected Zaunite children after devastating explosions in the city caused physical damage to structures and leaked toxic mining gas into the Undercity. I choose to say no more on her character arc because she's a prime candidate for an appearance in the future of Arcane. In a 2D fighting game, Oriana would be best represented as a puppet or trap fighter, positioning her clockwork ball appropriately and setting up her opponent for unpredictable mix-ups either from the ball itself or her ballerina-like movements and powerful consecutive attacks, referencing her CLOCKWORK wind-up passive from League of Legends. The last place an opponent would want to be is tightly between Orianna and her CLOCKWORK ball, where she would have the opportunity to attack you from any angle. If an opponent is able to separate her from her pressure maker, they would find she's not among the fastest fighters and punish her for her suboptimal positioning. Think Minot from Street Fighter. Speaking of trap characters, Xayah is an Ionian saboteur wielding razor-sharp thrown quills that have the potential to zone out and administer crowd control to melee combatants from afar. On Summoner's Rift, Xayah's feather daggers stay on the ground where they land for a period of time and can be recalled back to Xayah, dealing damage and potentially rooting any opponent through which they pass. This flighty bird would rely on setup during runaway and proper positioning to deal huge bursts of damage when she recalls her feathers. But if she's disrupted during placement, or her opponent also aims to zone her out, she can find herself unable to keep up in a fair 1v1. Good thing this game isn't actually 1v1. Can't have one without the other, Xayah and Rakan are lovebirds both in lore and in natural synergy in this tag fighter. Rakan is a support on the Rift, equipped with dashes to allies, barriers, heals, and captivating crowd control. In a 2D fighter, Rakan would have strong engage and disengage, and one of the more potent get-off-me tools when used as an assist to synergize with Xayah's melee shortcoming. Rakan, when played alone, makes for a suitable runaway rushdown with his extreme mobility, but would be lacking in overall damage to compensate for his mobility and great frame data. Including these characters together serves to reinforce the tag team structure of Project Del. With the inclusion of Darius, Katarina, and Fiora already, it would be inappropriate to not also include Garen. Besides, the roster is currently lacking in both Demacians and large characters. Garen is another poster child, this time for top lane tanks. In Project L, he should have a very defense-oriented and straight-laced kit, with spinning engagement tools, long thrusts, and powerful downward strikes with a sword, in reference to his Rift ultimate, Judgment, and to give him an anti-air. This all culminates into a defensive Shoto-killer charge character that would be easy to pick up, but lacks a projectile, and relies on easily ducked spin engages to close the distance with zoners. Birds and boars and bears, oh my. Udyr is a Freljordian shaman who channels animist animal spirits, a practice that is fading from popularity in his homeland. He has recently won the user vote to receive a redesign, and what has been put out by Riot for that redesign would make a great stance character in Project L. Gnar, while charming, is also a poor representative of the Freljord, so adding Udyr would help round out some regional inclusion. On Summoner's Rift, Udyr is literally a stance fighter. Toggling between his abilities changes his stance, and gives him passive buffs on his attacks, changes his move speed, and grants him secondary effects on auto attacks. In a 2D fighter, changing between stances could alter his moveset, and grant him additional frames of super armor, increase his range, or improve his mobility. If they go with this design, Udyr would have good skill expression and varied mix-ups. Yasuo is a guilt-ridden exile who bears the sword that killed his brother. He is a natural prodigy of his Ionian martial technique, which traditionally combines regimented swordsmanship and wind sorcery. In League of Legends, he's a highly mobile skirmisher who sets up his powerful damage-dealing ultimate with projectile whirlwinds and burns down targets who get caught out of position in only 1 or 2 quick critical strikes. All the while, he keeps himself safe from projectiles with barriers made from his wind magic. Yasuo is a skilled duelist, enough to defeat his older and more disciplined brother. In Project L, Yasuo may have strong dashing engagements and good mix-ups, giving him varied melee combos that would be difficult to predict. There would be no distance from Yasuo that is truly safe from attack, as he can both defend against and dish out damage with his wind sorcery at a distance, or use his dashes to engage on zoners before they can react. While you can't keep Yasuo standing where you want him, grapplers may find it easier to deal with him than others by forcing him to come to, or pass through them, at stage edges. Yasuo makes a natural 50-50 character. A good inspiration might be Kai Kisuke or Haomaru. Illaoi is a priestess to the Kraken god of motion Naga Keboros, from the pirate sanctuary of Bilgewater. She's a rough and tumble woman who pursues her desires on divine dictate. In League of Legends, Illaoi controls space by periodically summoning phantom Kraken tentacles to dish out extra damage in small zones around the map. Additionally, Illaoi can rip the spirit out of her opponents and pummel it, dealing about a third of the damage to the original opponent as well. In a 2D fighting game, Illaoi would work much the same way. She would control space with a phantom tentacle and force you to fight her on her turf by trying to literally test your spirit. Illaoi's full power comes to bear when she's able to hit both the spirit and the opponent at the same time by slamming tentacles down on them or smashing them both with her divine focus. So an opponent must be careful engaging on her if she's claimed your spirit in her zone, but leaving her alone with the spirit means free chip damage for the priestess. The distant, long since collapsed Empire of Shurima was blessed by Celestials with the knowledge of how to ascend their own mortal paragons to nigh godhood. Our final character, Emperor Azir, in spite of some questionable ruling decisions in his reign, was ascended as one such paragon. Now revived, he seeks to conquer the lands that he sees as rightfully his. Azir on Summoner's Rift is a mechanically intense champion, famous for his Shuriman Shuffle dash combo, summon soldiers, and the ability to temporarily reconstruct towers to extend his team's area of influence. This combines together in Project L to be an evasive puppet fighter. Azir's dashes, long scepter, and zone control through summoning sand soldiers from the ground would make him hard to pin down and even harder for some to approach. Other mobile characters may be able to keep up with his dashes and avoid his soldiers, and those with multi-hit attacks may find it easy to blast through the soldiers and hit Azir at the same time. There are so many League of Legends champions that I wanted to include in this list. It was very difficult to get this pinned down to just 20 characters and the 5 original that Riot has already released. I guess that's natural for a decade-old game with 159 characters at the time of writing, that's centered on combat no less, but still, it's a highway robbery that Samira didn't make the list. If there's positive reception for this roster, I'd like to do this again for 10 or so more honorable mentions who I thought would be great fits, but couldn't quite make it in because of the fighting style or regional diversity overlap. I have a list in mind, but let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe there are some that I haven't given enough thought. And with that said, be well.